welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be doing the try a chapter tag where I am going to be taking books that I think I might want to unhaul, but they still kind of seem sort of somewhat interesting to me, and I'm going to read the first chapter of them and then make my decision whether or not I'm going to unhaul them or give them another chance. So if you are new to my channel or you have not seen the previous two videos I did where I did a huge unhaul, I split it into two parts. I'll have them linked somewhere in the description box or in the iCards above. But I got rid of a ton of books, and in doing that, I found a few that I was on the fence about. So because of that, I'm going to try reading the first chapters, and then we will go from there. So the first book that we are going to be looking at today is The Witch of Babylon by DJ McIntosh. I'm going to read you the synopsis of each of these books, and then I'm going to go and read them and come back and let you know which ones I decided to keep. So the synopsis for this one says, John Madison is a Turkish-American art dealer raised by his much older brother Samuel, a respected Mesopotamian scholar. Caught between Samuel's obsession with saving a priceless relic looted from Iraq's National Museum and a deadly game of revenge staged by his childhood friend, John must solve a puzzle to find the link between a modern-day witch and an ancient one. Aided by an archaeologist and an Iraqi photojournalist, he races against time to decipher a biblical prophecy that leads to the dark history behind the science of alchemy. John's quest unearths a fabulous treasure trove and the truth behind a famous story long believed to be a myth. So the part about witches sounds interesting to me. The thing that I don't like about this is that it kind of gives me the Da Vinci Code vibes, and I feel like this is just going to be a knockoff of the Da Vinci Code. I should maybe like double check which one of these was written first, but I feel like, you know, whenever there's a huge popular book, which a few years ago, more than a few years ago now, I'm going to date myself, but a few years ago, the Da Vinci Code was everywhere, right? And then there starts to be all these knockoffs, you know, similar writings to that. So I feel like I get that sort of vibe from the synopsis, so I'm not 100% sure because I don't want to read the Da Vinci Code again. You know what I mean? I don't want to read a knockoff of the Da Vinci Code, so we will see. The next book is Valerie Martin's The Ghost of the Mary Celeste, and this one, I don't know, you guys. All the synopsis says is a ghost ship appears in the mist. To the struggling writer Arthur Conan Doyle, it is an inspiration. To Violet Petra, the gifted American psychic, it is a nightmare. To the death-obsessed Victorian public, it is a fascinating distraction. So that is literally all the synopsis is, so it doesn't really give you very much to go on. So we'll see. It doesn't give me enough to really make a decision whether or not I want to pick this up. So that's why reading the first chapter for this one's going to be really good. So this one I actually had in my unhaul pile, and then as I was going to talk about it, I realized the author is an author that I don't want to give up on. So this is by Libba Bray, and it's called A Great and Terrible Beauty. So I have read other Libba Bray books in the past. I loved her Diviner series, and so I didn't want to give up on this necessarily, but it was in my to-go pile. But as soon as I realized who the author was, I thought, I like this author, so I'm going to give it a chance. But the synopsis says, Gemma Doyle isn't like other girls. Girls with impeccable manners, who speak when spoken to, who remember their station, and who will lie back and think of England when it's required of them. No. 16-year-old Gemma is an island unto herself, sent to the Spence Academy in London after tragedy strikes her family in India. Lonely, guilt-ridden, and prone to visions of the future that have an uncomfortable habit of coming true, Gemma finds a chilly reception. But she's not completely alone. She's been followed by a mysterious young man who warns her to close her mind against the visions. For it's at Spence that Gemma's power to attract the supernatural unfolds. There she becomes entangled with the school's most powerful girls and discovers her mother's connection to a shadowy group called the Order. It's there that her destiny waits, if only she can believe in it. So this one, to me, I understand why I picked it up in the first place, but I'm almost wondering, like, I don't know, just the synopsis almost kind of seems boring. But once again, I like the author, so we will just see. This book is actually two books in one by Frank Peretti. So this is Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness. So it is, I think it's a book and its sequel. Yeah, I believe so. It says the war between good and evil is raging. In two unremarkable small towns, ordinary Christians are pitted against powerful leaders with the worst motives. Behind every scene, the spiritual realms are being shaken as the hosts battle for human souls. And the only power of prayer can tip the balance. This present darkness takes place in a typical small town of Ashton, where nothing much ever seems to happen, until a skeptical reporter and a prayerful pastor begin to compare notes. They suddenly find themselves fighting a hideous New Age plot to subjugate the townspeople and eventually the entire human race. The battle against evil continues in Piercing the Darkness. You know what? I'm not even going to bother reading that second part. I'm only going to read the first chapter of the first book, and I don't want to spoil myself in case I do want to read the first book. I don't want to spoil myself by reading the second synopsis. So I'm just going to go ahead and read the first one, and we'll go from there. This is a novel by Kit Reed called Simply Where. And it says, in a coastal town on the Outer Banks, David Ribbold and Meryl Polnott are at odds, and David wonders if he loves her enough to commit to marriage. When slick developer Rawson Steele arrives in town and starts buying a property, David isn't fooled by his smooth charm and is suspicious of Rawson's romantic-looking conversations with Meryl. When David agrees to a 4:30 a.m. meeting with Rawson, he hopes to confront him, but while he waits, the population of Craven Island, including Steele, vanishes. Something just lifted everybody, Meryl, her fanatical father and kid brother, and all, out of this space and time and dropped them in a mysterious new place. The question is, where? So while this one, definitely sounds like an interesting premise for a novel, I'm not 100% sure if it's something that I would typically pick up. I think I got this one in a subscription box, so we will see. The next one is a James Patterson book, and this is Truth or Die. I unhauled a whole bunch of James Patterson novels in I think it was in the part 2 of those unhaul videos. I've never actually read a James Patterson before, but the reason that I unhauled most of his books is because he writes a lot of like cop fiction. So where there's a protagonist that is a police officer, and I just find that I do not connect with those characters whatsoever. I don't like protagonists that are police officers trying to solve a crime. Don't like it. But this one sounded kind of interesting. After a serious professional stumble, attorney Trevor Mann finally may have hit his stride. He's found happiness with his girlfriend, Claire Parker, a beautiful, ambitious journalist always on the hunt for a scoop. But when Claire's investigation into an explosive story ends with a violent confrontation, Trevor's newly peaceful life is shattered as he tries to find out why. Tracing Claire's leads, Trevor unearths evidence of a shocking secret that, if actually exists, every government and terrorist organization around the world would do anything to possess. Suddenly, it's up to Trevor, along with a teenage genius who gives new meaning to the phrase "too smart for his own good," to make sure the secret doesn't fall into the wrong hands. But Trevor is about to discover that good and evil can look a lot alike, and nothing is ever black and white. Not even the truth. So this one sounds kind of interesting. We'll see how the first chapter goes. The last book that we're going to talk about today is called Traveler's Rest by Keith Lee Morris. And it says, the Addisons, Julie Antonio, 10-year-old Dewey, and derelict Uncle Robbie are driving home cross-country after collecting Robbie from yet another stint in rehab. When a blizzard strikes outside the town of Goodnight, Idaho, they seek refuge at the Traveler's Rest, a formerly opulent but now crumbling and eerie hotel where physical laws of the universe are bent. Once inside the hotel, the family is separated. As Julia and Antonio wander through the maze of the hotel's spectral interiors, struggling to make sense of the building's alluring powers, Dewey ventures outward to a secret-filled diner across the street. Meanwhile, a desperate Robbie quickly succumbs to his old vices, drifting ever further from the ones who love him most. With each passing hour, dreams and memories blur, tearing a hole in the fabric of perceived reality and leaving the Addisons in a ceaseless search for one another. At every turn, a mysterious force prevents them from reuniting until at last Julia is faced with an impossible choice. Can this mother save her family from the fate of becoming souvenirs, those citizens trapped forever in magnetic Goodnight, or worse, from disappearing entirely? This one, I feel like I've seen a movie like this before and I didn't like the movie, so I think that's why it's giving me vibes I'm not gonna like it. Let's go and read. I'm gonna go get a tea. I'm gonna curl up next to my Christmas tree. Let's check these books out. Okay, you guys, so I am done reading, and quite a few of them I didn't even finish the first chapter. I was just so disinterested in the first couple of pages that I didn't even bother continuing on. But there's only 2 books out of this pile that I've decided to keep, and I'm actually surprised about the one. But the first one is Traveler's Rest by Keith Lee Morris. So this is the one about the family that stops at the small town during a snowstorm and ends up staying at a hotel that kind of starts to change. So this one sounds, it's so hard to get a good idea from the first chapter, but this was one of the ones that I actually was interested in continuing on to read the next chapter. I almost started flipping and continuing to read the next chapter, so therefore I know that is something that might interest me. And nothing even really happened. All that happened was that they were just on the road and they decided to pull over into this small little sleepy town. So this one I think definitely caught my eye, and I'm going to keep it. The next one, which kind of surprised me, is actually the James Patterson one. And I'm not too surprised, because I know that James Patterson writes from a formula where he kind of like gets you hooked right off the bat with some sort of mystery. And he also has very short chapters. This chapter was only like 2 pages, so it was just like, I don't know if you guys can see this with my ring light, but it was just like that. So that was the first chapter. So not a lot happened, but our protagonist has a secret that he lets you know right off the bat. A secret, something kind of explosive has happened within the last 12 hours, and it kind of hooks you into wondering what this secret is. So I'll take the bait, James Patterson, and I'm going to read my first James Patterson book. Now let's go through all of the ones that I'm deciding to actually give up and that I'm going to be unhauling. So the first one is DJ McIntosh, The Witch of Babylon. And this one I did not get through the first chapter of. I found it to be extremely boring. So it's talking about a war that is going on. And it's talking about pillaging and just like the aftermath of this war. And it... as much as it might not sound good to say this, I find that boring. Like, I just am not interested in that whatsoever. And so it didn't even get, like, I think probably the second chapter will actually introduce our protagonist, and this is just giving some backstory, but I couldn't even get through the first chapter of it. So therefore you have to hook your readers within the first chapter, because otherwise you're going to have somebody sitting here doing a try a chapter tag, and they're not even going to be able to get through the first chapter with all this backstory that just doesn't interest me whatsoever. So the next one is Kit Reads Where, and this is another one that I did not get through the first chapter, and that is because I automatically did not like this protagonist. It is a male, an adult male, and I just find him to be very, like just kind of like a loudmouth guy that I just know that I'm not going to like. Like, he's already swearing quite a bit in the first chapter, and I just feel like he's just going to be a protagonist that I'm not going to care about, I'm not going to like, and I'm not going to be invested in. He just seems like a real man's man sort of guy that, like, ew. You know what I mean? Like, just one of those personalities that's just a very big, loud personality that's just the type of man that you just don't want to be around. And that is the kind of vibe that I got from this protagonist. So I didn't even bother finishing reading the first chapter. Guys, I just grabbed this book, and the book just like slipped out of the book jacket and flung itself at my dog. So that's great, poor thing. Anyways, the next one that we're going to be getting rid of is The Ghost of the Mary Celeste by Valerie Martin. This one had a very long, drawn out first chapter that once again I did not finish. It was very like sea jargon, sailing jargon. It was boring as heck. It was so boring, and a very long first chapter. I read like 3 pages of it, and I was like, okay, nope, don't care what happens on this ship whatsoever. I'm surprised that I'm not going to be continuing on with this one, because I thought with Lip of Bray that I would. But the thing that turned me off with this one is that it's supposed to be set in 1895. And this is just so strange to me. This must be one of her earlier works. because one of the things that I loved about the Diviners series that she wrote, because that was placed in the 1930s, and one of the things that I loved about that series was how well researched the time period was, and that I really felt like I was in 1930s New York. She did a really good job at writing the characters to be characters of the 30s in New York. And that was one thing that I completely commend her for. This novel, she absolutely did not do that. It's supposed to be set in the 1800s, and this character is talking as if she's in our day and age. So it was really confusing. So also she's, I believe from like London? No, she's not from London. She wants to go to London. But she is from, she's from Britain or something, but the story is set in India. I just wasn't getting, I was getting a good picture of India, but I just, once again, was not connecting with the character in the fact that in my mind's eye, I'm thinking this is supposed to be in the 1800s, but this girl is just talking as if the book is set now. So I almost feel like it should have been set now. She didn't do a good enough job of researching how people would have spoken back then, how they would have acted, with their families. Like, this girl is just acting like a huge brat to her mother, and I feel like she's talking back to her, and she's once again speaking as if it's our day and age. And I just don't feel that a 16-year-old girl would have been like lipping her mother off like they would nowadays. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I just did not get the time period whatsoever, and so I was already disconnected with the story. And the last book is this 2-in-1. This is by Frank Peretti, This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness. And this one, I don't know. I can see that maybe it would get more interesting, and it's kind of like that first one that we talked about. It's kind of like setting the story up. You haven't actually, within the first chapter, I didn't get to meet the main characters or anything like that. It's giving some backstory and setting the story up. But really long chapters, and I don't know, like, the writing is very small in this, and I just can't imagine myself sitting here reading all this. This is a thick book. Or books, but like, it's almost 1,000 pages, and it was giving a lot of detail about the town that this is set in. I don't like books that give too much detail. I like to imagine things on my own, and it just kind of like went a little bit too much into detail, and I was getting bored while I was reading all that, while I was reading this setup. So you guys, that is going to do it for me today. I ended up keeping 2 out of the 7 books that I tried a chapter for. So I would call that a success. Keeping even 1 would be a success, because this was a book that I was planning to get rid of that I'm now going to give a second chance to. So I call that a success. Let me know in the comments down below if any of those books sounded good to you that you wish I would read and give maybe more of a review on. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of those books and your thoughts on them. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!